So, Cam,
Mm-hmm.
the day this comes out, is the day after Halloween.
Right.
This is our second annual Halloween special.
Yes, it is.
I'm very excited. I don't know about you.
Our second annual Second Breakfast Halloween special.
Wow, that's like 4. It's like 2. So it's 4. Okay. Sorry, back to where we were. So, in honor of Halloween, I'd like to ask you a question.
All right.
What was your favorite costume that you've ever worn on Halloween?
When I dressed up as my dog.
You did do
and
that.
I had a little collar with a soup can lid with his name written out. I had the collar. It was a big white fluffy.
I was going to say, you got to give people the visual. What kind of dog was your dog?
Yeah, so my dog was a Coton de Tuileries, which is it's the cutest dog ever. It's the cousin of a Bichon, if you've ever seen one of those.
It's like if a Bichon and a Westie had a puppy.
15 pounds, fluff.
White.
A lot of personality, but not attitude. Mm-hmm. Not at all yippy.
No, not at all.
A good, moderate, respectable bark.
It was a wonderful dog.
Expressive face.
Mm-hmm.
Little whiskers.
Now, what was your dog's name?
Delbo.
Full name, please.
Delbo Ploppers.
Thank you.
I wanted to call him Ploppers, and there was an argument for Delbo, which is a reference to Henry V, because the French queen is trying to pronounce English words, and she tries to say elbow, and she says Delbo.
Delbo.
So we did that.
That's very
So it's
cute.
Delbo Ploppers. So yeah, he's white. He had a big fluffy tail.
Well, we've got to put that on our Instagram.
I'll find the picture because it was great. My mom made the costume, and it was fantastic.
Yeah, no, that was a good costume. I had totally forgotten you'd done that, and I remember seeing pictures.
What was yours?
My favorite, I think, I've had a lot of good costumes over the years, honestly.
Not since we've met.
One year, when I was in grad school, I dressed as Frankenfurter, but not like his normal costume, but his his green like scrub dress thing. Anyway, it was fun, but that's not my favorite.
Wait, haven't you done Frankenfurter twice?
No, just the once.
You sent me pictures of you in the Frankenfurter costume, and I had a genuine existential crisis.
Yeah, because I did the makeup and everything, and I looked hilarious.
I didn't know who you were. I didn't know who I was committed to.
I didn't do my makeup. My roommate did it, who's very good at makeup. Anyway.
I couldn't handle it.
That's not my favorite costume.
It's like a 2-day spiral.
My favorite costume was when I was like 5, and I was a bumblebee. And it was like this big, like round, black and yellow striped outfit with and I had these black and yellow striped tights.
Yeah.
And it had like a headpiece and like painted my nose black. But the best part, well, there are 2 good parts. I'll let you decide which was the best.
Uh-huh.
One is that my name that I gave myself in this costume was Bumble, which I think is very clever. The second part was that this costume had a little stinger. It was literally a triangle at the end, like a little black sting. When I was not wearing that costume and when it was like sitting in my closet, and if I happened upon the stinger, it scared me as a child. Like I would see it and like have the same reaction you have like when you see a bug.
Why would you hang it next to your normal clothes?
Well, I didn't hang it. It was like in like a bin, like in the, like we had like our costumes and stuff in a bin, and it terrified me as a child. So I was able to master my own fear and dress as Bumble.
I'll have you know,
I was 5.
Star-crossed lovers that we are, I was a bumblebee in high school because I saw a little
high school.
I saw a little bodysuit thing in Target. It looked like, Humpty Dumpty is like an egg with human legs.
Yeah, that's what I looked like.
It was like an egg-shaped thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wore that in high school.
We'll post some pictures. Yeah. It was great. One year I was a fish, and I just like had the most like 90s abstract face makeup you've ever seen with like this big fish costume I wore like over a purple shirt. Anyway, there are a lot of good costumes out there.
I was Jack Sparrow one time.
Yeah, that was also really good.
I was Rorschach.
Yes.
When I hadn't seen the movie, but I had read the comics.
Love that. Okay, well, that's fine then.
Yeah.
Well, great. If you have a favorite costume that you wore, send us an email at secondbreakfastpod@gmail.com or subscribe to our Substack at Second Breakfast Pod, or go on Instagram, Second Breakfast Pod, and TikTok, also Second Breakfast Pod. We'll be posting pictures, etc.
So like Maggie said, This is our 4th Halloween special. We're doing more of a conversational one this year.
Yeah. Last year we did we just talked about the horror genre.
It was a fun episode.
And we talked about what's horror movie stuck with you the most, and what was the first one you saw, and all this stuff. So that was a really fun discussion.
And this one, we wanted to talk about one of our favorite horror franchises, which has 9 entries over almost 20 years. The first movie came out 18 years ago today on the day we're recording this. Mm-hmm. And I've seen all of these multiple times. I've seen a couple of them in theaters, and there is no good, there is no bad. They're all fun and enjoyable and interesting in their own ways. I just love this franchise. Of course, I'm talking about Saw.
Yeah, and you would have known that by clicking on the title of this episode.
Which has in the infographic. So
but, yeah,
instead of just doing like we don't do reviews, but a general discussion about the franchise, we're asking a question to open it up here. And the question is, what makes a great Saw film?
And I should also say, we're going to spoil stuff here. But
for all of them.
But also, this series is so convoluted and insane.
In a good way.
That like, if I like say a plot beat that's like a big spoiler, you will forget it like 30 minutes into one of the movies because everything is so messy. And so like we watched, like to prep for this episode, we watched like a little 15-minute video on YouTube, like going through the entire timeline of the Saw series.
We'll throw that in the description.
Yeah, it was good. It'll be on our Substack post.
Boom.
But I was like, I forgot 90% of this. Like, this is so, there's so much going on. So if we spoil stuff, like, it kind of won't matter if you haven't seen the series. That's all I'm saying.
And as much as this franchise gets looked down upon, there's that ridiculous label of torture porn, which I don't recognize as a legitimate critique or label of it. No. The first movie is a puzzle box. And the ones from there go from these, like, bottle episode sort of trap puzzle sequences to this almost really fun schlocky soap opera thing about apprentices and love stories and backgrounds
flashbacks and comas and all kinds of things.
And if anything, the traps get a little less prevalent as it goes on. But this is a huge franchise. Over 9 movies, it's grossed over $1 billion worldwide.
Sorry, isn't it 10 movies? Because it's the 8 movies and then it's Jigsaw and then it's Spiral.
Nope. It's 7 movies in the original canon, and then Jigsaw came out, and then Spiral came out. And now the one they're working on that's coming out next year is Saw 10.
I thought Saw 8 was Saw 3D, the final chapter.
Nope, that's 7.
Are you sure?
Yes. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 3D.
Oh.
And then Jigsaw, then Spiral.
Okay.
Because the one they're doing now is Saw X, or Saw 10.
See, I just thought they weren't counting Jigsaw in the numerical order. Okay, well, cool.
So
Great.
9 movies, over $1 billion, and 10 is in the pipeline for next year. And they just confirmed a couple of days ago that Tobin Bell is coming back to the franchise.
Which is great, because he's essential for these movies.
Right. So he's Jigsaw. He's John Kramer. He's your antagonist. And he's been in every movie except Spiral. In some of those later sequels, he was more referenced or referred to, or he had like a one-scene cameo.
Because in the 3rd movie, he dies.
Right, at the end of the 3rd one.
So there's lots of flashbacks and all that sort of thing. And like the big reveal in Jigsaw is that it's a flashback the whole time.
Right.
Not flashback, but it takes place before all of the other movies.
There's this whole discussion of, is it a copycat murder? Why is this happening so many years after he died? And then you realize that the game that they're investigating happened like 10 years ago.
Yes.
So it's like a prequel, and they find the bodies and they've all been decomposed for a long time.
Like 10 years. Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. So we have a list of kind of elements to go through here. Do you want to start that?
Yeah, let's do that. Oh, sorry.
I have them written down?
I do too, but you always, you do this all the time. You'll be like, Maggie, here's the list of topics we're going to talk about, and then you present them in a totally different order. I wasn't ready.
I was trying to be magnanimous.
Okay, well, to bounce off of your Tobin Bell thing, we said the core elements that a good Saw movie needs are, number 1, Jigsaw, the man himself, right? Because as fun as like Spiral is, I know a lot of people didn't like Spiral, and it's certainly not my favorite Saw movie, like by any means, but I enjoyed it. Sure. It was fine, but it's missing a key thing, and I think one of those things is Jigsaw. Like it's not the same without this like weird creepy guy in a black cloak going, hello.
And Spiral is totally respectful to the franchise. It brought back director Darren Lynn Bousman,
that's right,
who was involved in so many of the earlier movies. It brought him back. It still had the same composer, and it was Chris Rock loves the Saw movies and wanted to make one. It felt totally reverential and coherent in the series. But you're right, without Jigsaw, it just missed something. It just missed something.
I mean, it would be like trying to make, a Friday the 13th without Jason. Like, it just wouldn't make any sense. You'd be like, why are you... Unless it's like a really cool twist. Like, for example, I mean, it's not really a twist in the first Friday the 13th, but spoiler, the twist is that it's not Jason, it's his mom the whole time. right? And then you've got that kind of thing in the later Saw movies where it's Hoffman or it's Strom, or I forget who's who.
But even with them, you get to see the handoff. You get to see them being knighted by Jigsaw, where they're official apprentices. They have some sort of interaction.
You see that relationship.
And that canonizes them somewhat. Yes. And as interesting as the bad guy was, who turned out to be the bad guy, the cop, in Spiral, he didn't have that handoff.
No, right. He's just kind of out there without a tether. And what was I going to say? I'll come back to it. You just keep
having those, even having a couple like convoluted flashback sequences. Oh, it's a prequel and it happened before he died. And here, we found some tapes with him talking. Like that still works because it still gives you that tap on the shoulder.
Right. I know what I was going to say. It was that another thing that I think works about having these apprentices who are kind of our main villains driving the plot in these later sequels is that the traps that they're setting are like incorrect based on Jigsaw, John Kramer's philosophy.
Right.
Like Hoffman makes a lot of traps that are not beatable. The whole point of Jigsaw is that if you do this, you overcome this challenge, you can get out of this trap and survive, and you'll have this new outlook on life.
Right.
Yeah. But a lot of the traps that Hoffman sets are not beatable, and so then we're left to contemplate and think about how this Wheeler, like, oh yeah, this guy is not as cool as Jigsaw, he's failing, and so we're it's reverential of Jigsaw,
and Jigsaw punishes those people whenever the apprentices go outside of his philosophy, for lack of a better word,
versus the villain in Spiral, for example, like setting these traps, and they're not as cool as Jigsaw, but there's never commentary on that, at least not that I remember. That may not be fair. I only saw it once when it came out a couple of years ago.
And it's not even just the character of Jigsaw. It's also the performance of Tobin Bell, which I think it cannot be overstated because he elevates every single thing you see on screen. He makes the traps more spooky. He sells the convoluted plot. The little campiness of it, like him running around wearing the Gryffindor robe, doing the voice with his little spiky hair and those like bulldog eyes.
Yeah.
He just sells all of it. He sort of sets the tone.
Right.
And he's doing such an interesting character. He always has passion and patience, and there's always such interest and preparation in his performance.
I was gonna say, it's a very like dedicated, like he's really going for it,
and that's the hook.
Yeah,
like that's what keeps you interested,
because there's certainly an element of camp to these movies, especially as we go along, and they get a bit more and more ridiculous, but he's committing to that. Like he's not embarrassed by it, or he's not making fun of it or like parodying it.
It's not ironic.
Like, exactly. Like he is committing, and so you're strapped into the absurd twists of this plot, and you're like, yeah, makes total sense. I'm all in.
And because he has such enthusiasm for it, it's infectious. Because there develops some sort of formula by the time you get through 3 or 4 of these. And my favorite part of that formula is at the very end of the movie, you have this last minute monologue where he explains all the plot twists
with big flashbacks. Score underneath.
Yeah, it's always the same rousing bit of score, and the flashbacks along the way connecting multiple movies and like returning deep cut characters that you completely forgot about.
And you're like, it was this all along.
But you're excited and it works, and then he throws out some quippy last word and slams the door, and that's it. And you always leave. I've never finished a Saw movie without a smile on my face.
Yeah, right. Because it's like, it's just so over the top, but that's really fun.
It's fun. Like it is having fun with it.
Exactly.
It's not this cynical, it's not chasing a trend.
Right.
Like even the later sequels for a franchise with 9 movies, they all feel like they're excited to be there.
Totally. And like they came out like once a year for like 5-7 years in a row.
The first 7 were pretty much annual.
Yeah.
And then often, there were more delays.
Often when you have a franchise like that where they're just cranking out sequels, they get like worse and worse and worse. And you can tell that they were just rushed and they're just putting them out there to put them out there. And you could argue that for these, but I really don't think that's what's happening. I see it as, this is such a fun formula to play with. What crazy things can we do? And they're just going for it.
I feel like there's Later sequels in long-running horror franchises can become more rigidly formulaic, or they just become reboots and sequels and prequels to sequels, and they get lost in that. Texas Chainsaw did that.
Yeah.
A bunch of these franchises did that.
Or they're just really going off and doing weird things, like, Jason Goes to Space.
Right.
That sort of thing.
And you could argue that Jigsaw and Spiral are both an attempt at that. They're kind of reboots because the characters they set up between Chris Rock's, what's the character name? Max?
Oh, I don't know.
Something?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I have no idea.
Chris
Sorry.
Rock's character in Spiral and the X-ray technician guy in, I think his name is Logan.
Yeah,
in Jigsaw.
Yeah.
They are set up to be new characters who will lead the franchise forward.
Mm-hmm.
And neither of those took, I think, enough to immediately greenlight a direct sequel, which is why you go from Jigsaw to another fresh attempt with Spiral.
Yes.
And now going to Saw 10. Just the fact that it's called that gives me more hope because
it's not an offshoot.
Right, because the thing that Saw did in its later sequels, I think, avoided a lot of the pitfalls of other franchises because it didn't double down on the formula. I think Saw 1 through 3 is a direct story of Jigsaw, and he dies.
Yes.
4 through 7, and I think 1 through 7 are the main franchise.
Yes.
4 through 7, if anything, they feel like, when you watch them together, it feels like a miniseries. Like they started serializing a larger narrative. Because everything with Hoffman and Jill Tuck and Strom, those characters play through all of those movies.
Yeah, no other side characters survive that many movies except like Amanda.
Right. So you think of the first 3 as John Kramer's story.
I guess technically Dr. Gordon, but he's not in a lot of the movies.
He just pops back in 7.
Yeah,
So you see the first 3 as John Kramer's story, and then the next 4 as that whole The Cop's Apprentices saga.
Right.
And then Jigsaw is its own thing. Spiral's its own thing. I imagine that because you're calling it Saw 10, you're pulling back to that original 7 movie canon.
That's what I would think too, because the title Jigsaw sounds like reboot. They didn't call it Saw 8, they called it Jigsaw. Right. And then Spiral, they say it was called Spiral from the Book of Saw, so indicating, which is a weird choice, but indicating that it's an offshoot, that it's separate. So you're totally right. I think calling it Saw 10 or Saw X is bringing it back to that original 7.
Here's sort of a related question, talking about Strom and Hoffman and all them. Do you think it is necessary for what makes a great Saw movie? Do you think having an apprentice is necessary? Because every single movie does. Even the first one does with Amanda.
Yeah, I mean, I think this might be unpopular. I think Amanda is the worst part of the first Saw movie. Like, I like her trap. I like that scene with the bear trap is so good. But I don't like her as becoming this apprentice. I find it like quite a bit of a stretch. And in the rest of the Saw movies, a stretch in a plot line is totally acceptable. But the first movie has such a different tone. It's so much more serious and so much more understated that I think Amanda is the worst part of that first movie. It's not the actress or anything. I just don't think she needs to be there. And so I think no, because I think the first one works so well. And I think it would work even better with that. Like, it doesn't need her to work well. The other ones, actually, you know what? I don't like Amanda at all. I don't like her ever. I don't think an apprentice is needed. It's needed later on when Jigsaw's dead. But yeah,
people remember the traps. Usually, people remember the bathroom from the first movie, the house from the second movie, the kind of hospital from the third. But I think Amanda is sort of the linchpin of the first movie. I really like her presence there because I think she validates Jigsaw's philosophy. If you didn't have a character who did change their mind after this experience, he would just be a murderer and a torturer.
That's really true. That's a really good point.
Her being sold by that.
Yeah, versus somebody who is like a convert and an apprentice but did not go through a trap. Like Hoffman doesn't. Is he ever put in a trap?
Yes, a couple times.
But like, when he's converted, I don't remember. It's all mixed up and convoluted.
I think he's put in 1 or 2 traps when he steps out of line.
Okay. But I'm saying, like, when he comes over to Jigsaw's side, is it because he's put in a trap himself, or is it just like, this guy's cool?
No, I think he's sold on the philosophy. I don't think
Yeah, right. But it's more interesting to have Amanda who survived the experience and converted. So it's like proof that philosophy can work, basically. So, yeah, no, that's a really good point.
Because, I mean, when that comes back again with Gordon returning in the 7th movie, as a survivor who then became an acolyte or a disciple. And then you see Jill kind of try to become an apprentice when she's fighting Hoffman for like the legacy of it.
Right.
It's different in the later sequels after Jigsaw is dead. But I do think it's important to have an apprentice while Jigsaw's alive, because it shows you that this thing can work, this philosophy can change someone's life, but it also necessarily gives him someone to talk to.
Yeah, so he's not just in a dark room alone.
Yeah, to plan out the ideas, to select the people.
Also, it makes it feel a bit more believable if he's got help capturing people and setting up traps and all those things.
And as much as my favorite movies are the first couple, I love the serialized drama with the cops and the apprentices of 4 through 7.
Me too.
And if you hadn't set up those apprentices, you wouldn't have all that character work and plot to play through. I mean, through like 4 movies.
Right.
So I think those are all pluses.
Yeah. In Spiral, there's the main person who's doing the copycat murders.
Chris Rock's partner.
Yeah.
Right.
Is there anybody... Does he have anybody else secretly helping him? I can't remember. What's Samuel L. Jackson doing? Is he secretly doing stuff?
He's Chris Rock's dad.
No, I know that.
No, he was a dirty cop, remember?
Okay.
He did something bad.
Okay.
Because you see the flashbacks with him with the big mustache?
Yeah.
With like the different lighting?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So my question is, does Chris Rock's partner, does he have an apprentice in all of his doings? Like,
I don't think we'll ever find out.
So I'm saying I just genuinely can't remember. So I wonder if that's part of why Spiral doesn't work as well for you, is because there's no real apprentice. There's a copycat. Right. But there's no real like apprentice.
And because that character, I mean, you should just search it on IMDb while we're talking.
Yeah.
Because it...
I thought you were talking to the listener.
No.
I'm stupid.
Yeah, then the listener can go back in time and tell me.
I'm sorry.
Because that character doesn't come from a direct lineage of Jigsaw, it felt more like they were trying to create the next Jigsaw. Mm-hmm. And if you have to compete with Tobin Bell in that character, you're going to lose.
Max Malinga.
That's the actor.
Oh, you're right. William Shank. I'm sorry. I can't read IMDb.
Maggie, fun fact for those at home, Maggie might be the worst Googler of all time.
I am so bad at like finding out. I'm not good at this.
You said William was his name?
William Shank.
Okay. Yeah. So it felt like they were trying to set him up as the new big bad for the franchise. So they could keep going with the philosophy, but get past all of the characters from the original 7 movies.
Do you think I stopped wanting to become a professor and do research because I'm a bad Googler? Like maybe that's why.
That might be it.
I like couldn't find out the information I needed, so I said, give up.
I think it's because you'd rather talk about Saw.
That's probably it.
The other thing, as much as Spiral had levity and interest from Chris Rock, I thought his performance was great. Oh,
he was great. And so was Samuel L. Jackson. I always enjoy him.
Sure. Yeah. But it was just a typically good Samuel L. Jackson performance. I think I was more immersed in Chris Rock. I thought he was a great... He was really putting in work. As the center of that movie, I thought his hustle was fantastic.
Yeah. Well, and I think Samuel L. Jackson thrives best with a Quentin Tarantino script. But
sure.
Anyway.
Or something written in the style of, which is usually it. But I think there was one thing that I didn't really find in Spiral that I've loved so much in the other movies. And this is another one of our little key elements to what makes a great Saw film. That is a goofy victim.
What did you mean by that? I was curious what you meant.
In the first movie, it's Adam.
Yeah.
Lee Winnell trying to swallow his accent. Yeah. And I think it's one of my favorite horror performances of all time.
It's both of them trying to swallow their accents. Yeah. Carrie Ellis, you bastard!
Yes. To his credit, Lee Winnell does a much better job than Carrie Ellis does. But I smile through that entire movie.
Yeah.
But Adam is so funny. He is more the voice of the audience, where he's pissed and angry and grumpy through it. He's not the noble father doctor trying to survive here. In the later movies, 2 and I don't know, 5 or 7 or something, Donnie Wahlberg is another...
Donnie!
He's the perfect goofy victim in this.
Yes, that's true.
He's playing this cop who like can't control his anger in 2. But there's such a fun melodrama. And I think he knew exactly what this franchise called.
Yeah, he's perfect for that franchise, yeah.
And I've seen him in plenty of other roles. For some reason, I watched Blue Bloods for a long time.
Why?
I don't know. I just wish with my family. But he's given more of a straight performance there. He's capable of more of a leading man type role.
Yeah.
And he's doing something very different here. And I find it so passionately enjoyable to watch. And I love when he comes back later.
Yeah.
And having a bit of that goofiness where you're sort of shitting on the premise or just adding something almost sarcastic, almost ironic, almost campy to it, totally elevates the dense lore, gives you a little breather from that, and it cuts that grim, dark tone just enough to keep things breathable for an audience.
Because the tone of the Saw movies, except for maybe the first one, is not like super, super grim, terrible. Like, because there's an element of absurdity, and so it just makes you able to endure the like absurd number of really gory kills, you know.
And that goofy character sometimes is goofy in the way that they're actively making jokes. And I think that's most often what you see in the franchise.
Yeah.
But the one I really wanted to spotlight here is Agent Strom. Scott Patterson from Gilmore Girls.
Yes, Luke from Gilmore Girls.
Because he plays that role so laser focused. He's such a straight man in a comedic sense that his character elevates into this glorious, like, farcical Adam West style. Like, it's so funny he's doing, but
because he's being so serious.
But he cares.
Yeah,
and he's like, I think it's because those movies have that escalating melodrama, and the plot gets more and more knotted and twisted.
Yes,
that having this guy, especially after the tracheotomy,
I love the tracheotomy,
and they dubbed every single line of his in that movie.
Yes,
him taking every single plot development completely straight.
Yeah.
Makes it so much more fun to watch.
It is very fun.
Versus if someone had been in there sarcastically, like, deflating the tension, be like, that would never happen.
Yeah,
that would suck.
Absolutely.
He's playing it with genuine passion.
Yes.
And I believe Scott Patterson, like, it's not I don't think it was a goofy side project. I don't really care about this role for him.
No, I think he was like, all right, this is going to be fun.
He's committing to it.
And
he's a fantastic, memorable character. And he's played against Hoffman, who's doing the same thing. He just can't stop setting traps that kill people. He's bad at being Jigsaw.
Yep.
And Strom is, it's like it's a cat and mouse thing that is so funny.
I do like that Hoffman and Strom look really similar, and you can't always remember which one's which, but it kind of doesn't matter.
Yes, you can, because Hoffman has those luscious lips. And you remember him from his Sex and the City cameo.
That's right. Who was he in Sex and the City?
He's the friar. He's the guy who Samantha dates from the church.
That's right.
I think they're very different looking and enough to remember, but
it's like just two brown-haired guys who Strothman and Hoffman. I can't. So the only way I was able to, when we were watching these for the first time, I was like, is that Luke from Gilmore Girls? I don't know. But yeah, I mean, you're totally right. Those performances are, I think, really necessary.
And you to our previous points, you could argue that those guys are, one of them is sort of playing the goofy victim, especially after Strom survives one of the traps.
Yeah.
But also Hoffman is the apprentice who sort of becomes the heir to the Jigsaw fortune. So they're almost filling those roles, but it doesn't ever feel like they're trying to replace Tobin Bell. It feels like that remnants of like the next generation of what's left. And it's so messy and it's so connected to Jigsaw, whether it's Jigsaw's wife or Amanda or Gordon gets pulled back in.
Yeah.
Like, it's so immersed in the lore that I love those two characters as much as I love really anyone else in the series.
Sure, yeah.
Like, it's not impossible to do a great sixth movie in a franchise. Saw 6 is one of the best. And
I love Saw 6.
that's why I'm so excited that director is coming back for Saw 10.
Yeah.
But he seems to have that same genuine love and enthusiasm for this lore.
Yeah.
And as much as it's backtracked and you can get a prequel scene and a flashback and you just connect it and throw in a new character, and actually, they were here all along.
Yeah.
Actually, they were Jigsaw's first apprentice.
He's been hiding in the closet the whole time.
There's a tape we found from the 80s that actually, like,
yeah.
when you do that in Saw movies, it just makes you smile.
Yeah, you're like, awesome.
And it totally works.
It does, yeah. Well, your next like few criteria that you listed are really connected because they're all about aesthetics.
Yeah, that's sort of all I have about story. I want to move to the rest of what makes a great Saw movie.
Do I have any story that I want to talk about? Well, I should say, no, we'll wait. Never mind. I'm good.
Okay.
We'll wait. Sorry.
These are more about aesthetics. And those are harder to measure and explain parts of a movie that really hook you in. So the first one is what I'm calling VHS static. And so much of what I think of, and even what I thought of when I was making the infographic for this episode, was those puppet videos.
Yes.
Where Jigsaw is like doing the marionette thing
puppet,
and introducing the game.
Honestly,
and doing the voice.
Still, as silly as these movies are, it's always scary to see that puppet on the VHS. Like, it's always freaky.
And it's scary because he doesn't have access to a Hollywood studio.
Right.
It's scary because of the DIY ick factor.
Yes.
And VHS is such a DIY sort of medium because I remember when I was a kid recording something off TV and you like stop recording when it goes to ads and then you go back. Like, it is more of an involved personal medium.
Yes.
It's got that static, it's got that scrappy Blair Witch homemade.
Exactly.
And that's what you want to be scared of when you think of Jigsaw. It's a guy with too much time and too many little plots hanging out in a warehouse in his little robe.
Yeah.
And he's thought out every scenario, and that's freaky.
Yes. And I think this is getting into stuff about the traps, but what I think doesn't work in Jigsaw is there's too much technology and it doesn't have that DIY feeling because the laser collar
the laser
at
collar.
the end, I do not enjoy that trap
Me
at
neither.
all. I don't find it compelling. It feels so modern, and because it doesn't seem like something that a guy could have made in his basement.
Exactly.
And that's what's scary about Jigsaw is that he's just a dude at his basement, and he's very clever and inventive and industrious, but it feels like something, the traps he puts together, the really good ones, feel like something that anybody could have done with like enough time.
It's some knives that you have to stick your face through.
But the laser collar, you have to like order through a special manufacturer. And like, I don't like that.
Right. And I think we can tie this into the VHS thing because it's a larger point about technology. And the last point that I threw in here about the traps was that they have to feel industrial. Whether they involve a chain or a saw, it has to be something brutal.
Some sort of gear or rig.
Like it has to be metal. It has to be brutal. And at most, this technology has to be Dickens level. Nothing past that.
Exactly.
You cannot have lasers.
No lasers, right. No, yeah, I mean, like a shotgun, sure, that's fine. Like, shotguns are used quite a few times, but...
In the same way, seeing the updated version of the puppet video in Spiral, which was the pig puppet, which was cool. Because it was part of that movie's kind of reckoning with dirty cops. Because you've got the pigs sort of thing. And he has a little cop hat on.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting. The puppet design was great. But the fact that they were watching it on a laptop, that it was filmed with a good camera, and they put those like grill marks over it to make it look weathered and old. Do you remember? They kind of put that like a loose old school effect on it.
I do remember that.
It was just too clear.
Yes.
And part of the charm of these movies, there's a reason the aesthetic is set by the first movie, and all of the successful sequels follow that look. It's that they all have to look and feel low budget.
Yes.
Because that is what forces the creativity and the ingenuity. The thing that is so jaw-dropping about the first film is that Jigsaw is in the bathroom, and that 90% of this movie's in a bathroom. They filmed it in a week. It was just ideas and hustle and $25. And it's the storytelling twists and eventually what becomes convoluted, which is fine.
Yeah.
Those are the things that hook your attention.
Exactly. Yeah.
And when the budget's too big or you try to modernize it, you have too much money to play with.
When there's a trap with like this giant thing with the motorcycle, remember that?
Yes.
It was like, this is so, like, a person didn't make this. They would need a crane to do this and like hire in a team. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
I want it to be dirty and borrowed.
Yeah.
It feels like the first Evil Dead movie.
Yeah.
Where Sam Raimi borrows his dad's car and shotgun. And those become the iconic parts of Ash.
Right. I mean, like, you could argue, like, well, like the razor wire trap in the first movie, and even the one with the candle and the wax, those are really, really detailed and involved, but it just takes time.
Exactly.
That's all it takes. It doesn't take special technology or extra people.
Yeah, you Sharpie a bunch of numbers on the wall.
It's just an obsessive guy putting together this thing over a long period of time.
Right. So the traps have to feel possible. And I think that goes into that small budget thing because it has to be attainable with just a few crew members.
Right. And I think, but they also have to be incredibly creative.
Yes.
Like if and all the best ones are, like, if it's just like, oh, well, if you touch this, you die, or, oh, there's a knife. Like, that's not creative and that's not a fun, that removes the fun element to it.
The key's in the dead guy's stomach. You have to.
Yes. You have to cut open his stomach and take it out. Oh, the key's sewn in behind your eye. You have to, like, I love the ones that are puzzles and like are, that not only are they like just fun to think about and like like process, like, oh, that's like awful, like, oh, I got to do all these things. There's like a scavenger hunt element to it. It's also that they make you think about real issues.
Do you remember the pound of flesh one?
I love that one.
Yeah, where you have to like cut off enough parts of your body to like satisfy the scale.
Crazy.
There has to be a puzzle element. It can't just be surviving the gore.
Yes.
There has to be a point to it.
Yes, and I think that's what's so interesting about these movies is that they get more and more ridiculous and more like absurd, but they continue to make you think.
Yes.
Philosophically, because I mean, Jigsaw, John Kramer's whole thing is that he's trying to teach people lessons and help them get a new lease on life, and is punishing people for certain wrongs. Some of them are certainly not warranted, like a drug addict and that sort of thing. But then you've got people like who work in health insurance and people who were cheating on their husband or stuff like that. And you're like, oh, like that's really interesting. Not that I think anybody should be brutally murdered for these things, but it's interesting.
Because if you watch that recap video that we're going to put in the description,
yeah,
so many of the people that he involves and kills and throws into traps are people who have fucked him over in his process of getting cancer treatment.
Yeah.
Whether it's the health insurance executive, the doctor who screwed something up, the lab technician that screws something up, all of those parts, it becomes as much of an indictment of the American medical system as Breaking Bad is.
Right.
And he's basically Walter White.
Yeah.
He's doing the same thing, but there's just, I don't know, he's more into board games.
Right. And Breaking Bad started like about halfway through the Saw franchise, right. So that's like, really interesting.
There's more of a fatalism to John Kramer because he's just punishing the people who hurt him on his way out. And Walt is trying to sort of get back at them by bettering himself, which is making money, I guess, which is the point of selling the meth.
Yeah.
So, but they're kind of like slightly different pathways taken by the same basic character.
Yeah. And
they can become such startling critiques of modern America. But it's the America of the early 21st century. I was
going to say, this comes back to the aesthetics.
In the same way Breaking Bad is 2007.
Exactly.
Always.
Exactly. Like this comes back to the aesthetics. Like all of the best Saw movies look like a 3 Days Grace music video. Like they have to. Like, again, that is, and I hate just like poo-pooing on Jigsaw, but it's my least favorite because Jigsaw doesn't look like the other movies. Spiral doesn't either, but Spiral is so separate that I think it's okay that it doesn't. But Jigsaw is supposed to take place before the other 7 or the other 7.
Yeah.
And so but it looks so modern and clean and warm. Like it doesn't have that green, grimy, gritty bathroom look that all the other Saw movies have. And I think it doesn't work because it's meant to be about early 2000s America. The first Saw movie came out in 2004. So we're in this like post 9/11.
Right.
Like we're in Afghanistan and Iraq time in America, and everything feels really chaotic. People are feeling really confused and critical of systems. And then we get further along in the series, and then you've got the 2008 crash and all that stuff, and like this concern about healthcare. And so, and I don't mean to say that movies are always commenting on the America they're in or whatever, but
it's very difficult to divorce them from the context in which they're created.
Exactly. Right. And because it's not like these are period pieces or something. And so what?
No. Yeah. Keep going. It's an interesting phrase to apply here.
And so I just think having that aesthetic and tying it to that period of time is what makes this series work. And so when you've got something like, I mean, Jigsaw was only 2010, but it just felt like it was really trying to, no, that was Saw 7. Jigsaw was 2017.
Good catch.
Thank you. So Jigsaw is 2017, which is post 2016, which is a totally different era for America.
Well, we don't know when it was made, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying, just thinking about, I'm calling all these based on the year they come out.
Sure.
Jigsaw is coming out post-Trump, and that's during, and that's a really interesting time in America when we've all got very different feelings about what's going on and what entertainment should be and what we should be commenting on and deconstructing in our art, which was not really happening in the 2000s.
In the mainstream.
Right, yeah.
But there was also an increased no faith in institutions in the same way in the aftermath of 9/11. There was that questioning and that sort of trust free fall.
Right.
2016 had the same thing. I think that's the only thing people agreed on in that year.
That's true.
And that movie did play on that.
It did.
With that destabilizing. even as you go
Yes.
into Jigsaw's legacy. The thing you thought you've known for 7 movies. Now we're going to shake that up
Yeah.
and throw in a new apprentice. And I think Logan, for me, is probably the most successful part of that movie.
Yeah.
But I agree, the problem with the aesthetics for me is that everything feels clean. That room that they're in with the saws at the end when they're being dragged by those chains,
Yeah.
the metal is too clean and
Yes.
polished. The
Yes.
barn is too neat.
The barn
and
is
orderly.
so clean and orderly. Like you could, if you just took out the chains and the saws, that would be a cute, happy little barn. Like,
Right.
I don't know. It just didn't make any sense.
Because I do think the sort of mood board for every Saw thing
Yeah.
is the bathroom from the first one.
Well, exactly.
The second movie, you take those aesthetics and you put it in a
house.
gross old house. There are plenty of other trap dungeons and locations,
Yeah.
and like one of them kind of looks like a zoo.
Yeah. Yeah.
All of
It's
that's
got to be a
fine.
warehouse, an abandoned building, not just like somebody's barn.
Like, it doesn't literally have to be a bathroom, but
No.
I think I was looking up photos from each of these movies, and it looked like after Saw 4, the franchise became more blue and yellow. They
Yeah.
experimented with warmth in the look of
Yeah.
the shots.
Saw 6 is actually pretty warm. It's grimy,
right.
but it's warm.
And
Yeah.
it was still characteristically oversaturated, the look of the image.
Yes. Uh-huh.
But it was less radioactive. It
Yeah.
needs to be a bit more bathroomy.
It needs
or
to
it's
be more
not my
fluorescent.
preference.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Spiral had a more warm look to it too.
Yeah.
Which reminded me more of something like Saw 6, but it didn't hit that bathroom high.
Right. 'Cause
from
it
the
wasn't-
first
'cause
few.
it wasn't as grimy.
Right.
Yeah.
And
uh-huh.
it's strange how like rust, grime, filth, all of these things that are hard to, like, there's not a fancier word for that besides aesthetic.
Mm-hmm.
But all of that ties into the early 2000s because that was the expectation of horror movies for a while.
Yes, right.
We were at we went to see The Strangers, which we're going to talk about in an upcoming episode. And there was a Q&A afterwards with Brian Bertino, who's the writer-director. And he was almost goofing on 15 years ago, every horror movie had to be green
Yes.
and gritty.
Yes.
And I think that's fine for something like The Strangers, which is moving so hard in a different direction.
Into that warmth. And,
But for,
yeah.
for something that will always be locked in that ethos of 18 years ago America, I think there is some obligation to stick to that visual palette a bit,
Yeah.
or it's going to feel discordant.
Yes,
Like,
I agree.
Spiral was a modern film, and I really liked it,
Yeah.
but it didn't click with me as hard as I wanted it to as a Saw film.
I was going to say, yeah, I liked it, but not as a Saw film.
Because anything beyond flip phones kind of breaks that world for me. I want chunky mall goth fashion.
Yeah.
I want the outliers in that world to feel like outliers, where the
Yes.
base starting point is the fashion and look from basically the first 4. And then when someone else or something else pops up, you know that is the thing we're talking about. That's the thing we're analyzing. That's sort of the object of interest. So Jigsaw being a normal-looking older guy wearing a clean white T-shirt. I mean, he's dead, but he's wearing a white T-shirt.
Yeah, uh-huh.
He's the thing that we're paying attention to, and he becomes the hook of that first movie.
Sure.
The CEO in the suit becomes the object of interest in the 6th movie.
Yes.
But the grime around him, that is us. That's where we're sitting and where we're looking from. And I like that we can hold up this one different thing and play with it.
Yeah.
Whether it's Strom or Hoffman, you see them get dirtier and grislier as they go through this world more, between the tracheotomy and Hoffman putting on the Gryffindor robes. And I think it establishes a continuity, that look and dirty feel of it, in the same way having the same composer for all 9 films.
Yeah.
That is a nod to the importance of continuity in a franchise. And there is a visual continuity that some of the later entries have moved away from, and it sort of lost me. Because
Yeah.
I've seen Jigsaw and Spiral in theaters, and I've watched the other ones a bunch of times at home.
Yeah.
And as the lights came up on Jigsaw and Spiral, I was so excited that this thing was back and that I got to see it in a theater.
Yeah.
But it just didn't hit that high
Yeah.
that I really wanted from the other movies. And
Totally.
maybe a way to close out this conversation is to turn it to Saw 10,
Yeah.
because that has the returning director, Kevin Greutart, I think is how you pronounce his name.
Okay.
It's Greutart.
Okay.
So I'm just riffing there.
Okay.
He edited most of the first 5 movies, I believe,
Okay.
and directed number 6.
Oh, great.
Might
yes.
have directed 4 too. So I know he did 6 anyway.
Okay.
And that was the one with the health insurance
I was
guy.
gonna say 6 is like my of the sequels. I think 6 might be
Or
my
3.
favorite. 6 or 3. Yeah.
Right. 3 because it has such great domino twist at the end.
Yeah.
But 6, yes, because it has that amazing health insurance focus.
Mm-hmm.
And if that was released today, I think it would be received so differently.
Yeah.
It would almost feel like an A24 kind of thing because it has this like kind of social interest as well.
Exactly.
But him coming back, I believe he's going to be much more familiar with that continuity than maybe the newer directors in the previous 2 films.
Sure.
So I'm hoping it's a return to form in all of these aspects.
Me too.
The fact that they brought back this guy who was intricately involved with the first 6 movies in various capacities, and they brought back Tobin Bell.
Yeah.
I have to believe they're going back to all of these things that we love so much.
Yeah. So here's my question. If they're bringing back Tobin Bell, it's either going to be a flashback story or there will just be flashbacks with him in them.
See,
so how do we think that's going to play out?
This is why I paused a couple minutes ago when you used the word period piece.
Oh, okay.
Because I want this movie to be that.
Oh, interesting. In the way that Jigsaw was not.
We have seen in the last decade of American pop culture, we have seen the absolute fetishization of the 80s, which is fine. It's just not particularly for me.
Like Stranger Things and it.
Synthesizers do nothing for me. And now we're going to move into the 90s.
Yeah.
And soon enough, we're going to move into the 2000s.
we go back 20, 30 years each time.
If you can be ahead of that curve, because there's a way, I think if you did a movie that felt like it was 18 years old right now, with a modern sensibility and hook and a really good marketing strategy, I think it could become this fantastic, kind of a bottle episode, modern grindhouse thing. In the same way that the originals are when you watch them now. I absolutely think you could go back to that aesthetic and that look, say, this one actually happened between 3 and 4. There were a couple weeks that weren't accounted for. This guy was actually there, and
I'd be fine.
I don't give a shit that Tobin Bell looks older. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
He
had cancer. It's fine.
He's going to work his ass off.
In
whatever. But if they have him in only 2 scenes, I'm going to be pissed.
Yeah.
When you bring him back like this, I think it's a public admission that he is the face of this franchise.
Well, and I could totally see doing like a early 2000s, you're calling it a period piece, because from what I can tell on the TikTok, the youths are really leaning into the Y2K fashion. Right. Like they're doing the like low rise jeans and the clock cups are 90s, but also 2000s, and like spaghetti strap. Like I totally and the ribbed shirts, like it's coming back.
And the whole critique of that, post 9/11 society.
Yes.
That's compelling for people now.
Yes, it is.
And I think it opens up fantastic possibilities from a writing perspective to go back to that era of technology where people actually had to fucking talk to each other and you only have flip phones.
Yeah,
because you don't have GPS tracking where like, we think that the MP4 file that we got from the Puppet video, we think we can track it to the web.
Yeah, the IP address, blah, blah, blah.
It's a VHS tape.
It doesn't matter.
You have no idea where it's coming from.
Again, it's that perfect. I love that era. We were watching the Blair Witch Project the other day, which we're also going to talk about in another episode. Cam had never seen it, but that came out in 99. And so I was talking about, I love that era of time when we were transitioning into the digital age, but weren't quite there. Yeah. So there was digital technology, but with like analog tools. So like videotapes and like cameras with videotapes in them, and like no DVDs, no CDs quite yet, like no USB drives. Like it was still like physical, and like there were still floppy disks. And so I love that era, and that's what Saw feels like to me. Even though, I mean, you're getting into like 2008 and on, that's really the digital internet era, but there are so many flashbacks, and also like Jigsaw is this old guy, so he's leaning into that older technology.
And I feel like I could make this argument for a bunch of other horror franchises that are still going, where the best direction forward is a period piece. I think the direction to go for Halloween now is to set something in the late 70s with the look and the feel, like we said before, the music, the technology, the fashion, the attitudes, to set it there and have fun with it. I think that's why the Black Phone was so good.
Yeah.
But you can also do that for Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That one almost is built in, that everything's sort of a period piece, because the point of it is that you're in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. So technology stops being a factor. And it's just a couple people and a guy with a chainsaw.
Yep.
And that's why that formula works. Yeah. Regardless of the entry, I think they're all pretty solid, because you are pushed into that formula. It is so all-encompassing. I think Saw needs to do that.
Yeah.
And I agree that sort of being at the top of that wave, going into the Y2K nostalgia, playing with that look and feel and grime, it's going to charm people.
Yeah.
In the same way the scrappiness of Terrifier 2 charms people.
Yeah.
In the same way the low-budget creative vigor of Barbarian charmed people.
Terrifier 2, which we did a whole episode about Art the Clown. That felt like Saw in its griminess and its scrappiness, its greediness. I mean, it's its own thing for sure, and it's much bloodier than Saw, but in many ways. But yeah, it's got that same feeling, and it's being received so well. I think that's kind of what people want. They want to go back to that.
Terrifier 2 feels like a leapfrog jump into its own thing, but All Hallows Eve and Terrifier are very much in that wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Where those feel more like that original Saw DNA.
Sure.
Especially the lighting,
the
color, the saturation, the grit.
Yeah, like the first mini film in All Hallows Eve and all of Terrifier 1.
Sure.
Yeah, you're totally right.
And the first movie's made with $35,000.
Are you
so
kidding
that's
me?
on that micro budget.
$35,000?
That's what I saw. So that's
amazing.
It puts it on that same scrappy micro budget level as the original Saw movie, which comes out of a student film from two guys from Australia.
Yes.
James Wan and Lee Winnell.
That's my other favorite thing about this franchise is just what it means historically.
Yes.
And that's how we got James Wan and Lee Winnell.
Right.
That's how we got The Conjuring. That's how we got The Invisible Man. That's how we got Insidious. Like that's so cool to me.
Yeah.
So I love that as well. Also, that's the only other I've only seen Carrie Elwes in The Princess Bride and Saw. And so it's very fun for me to see that. But yeah.
Yeah, I love this franchise, and I'm so excited. I mean, I was going to be excited for Saw 10 regardless. If they said it was another Spiral, if they said it was a Jigsaw, I'd still be excited. But the fact that it's Saw 10, and they're bringing back that director, and they're bringing back Tobin Bell, I'm over the moon.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
Cool. So what makes a great Saw movie?
Let us know. Which one is your favorite? Kim, which is your favorite Saw trap? Like, aside from the bathroom. Like, obviously that's the best one. But do you have a favorite Saw trap?
It's hard because the first one that hits you is always going to be your favorite. The
Yeah.
reverse bear trap with Amanda is kind of always going to be the best one.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
It just looks so cool.
You're right.
And it's so visceral.
And
you
I
understand it
and I
so
like
completely.
that they keep bringing it back in all of the sequels. Like, that's pretty fun.
And that when you bring it back in 7, when it's on Jill, I think.
Yes.
And it
first
goes off.
They tried on Hoffman first, and then they do it on
And
Jill.
he escapes it.
He escapes it.
But Jill doesn't.
Yeah.
So you finally see
see it go off.
The other
you've never
shoe
seen
drops.
it go off.
And it feels like that in absentia completes Amanda's 7 movie arc.
Yeah, that's true. That's very nice.
Yeah, I think it's always going to be the bear trap.
Yeah. The pendulum one is also really fun, but it's inescapable because it's one of Hoffman's.
Right.
But that one's pretty cool. I like it as a visual. I think it's great.
So what makes a great Saw film? Jigsaw, an apprentice, a goofy victim, VHS static, rust, grime, and filth, green light, early 2000s fashion, music, technology, attitudes, and industrial traps.
Yeah. Let us know your favorite Saw movie, your favorite trap, what you think about the franchise, etc. Theories on the next on Saw 10. When is it coming out?
I believe next Halloween.
Cool.
2023.
Maybe we'll have to do an episode on it when it comes out.
Unless
Unless it sucks, because we don't want to do that. But
it can't. It can't.
Yeah.
I've found things to love in all of these movies.
Yeah. No, that's true.
I will find. I mean, just Tobin Bell being back on screen. That's going to be awesome.
For FYI, that's why we haven't done any episodes on the new Halloween movie because.
Which one?
Oof.
So we are Second Breakfast Pod everywhere.
Yeah.
That is Instagram, TikTok, Gmail if you want to email us, YouTube where we're putting up daily videos. Right now they're still rolling from House of the Dragon, but we'll be experimenting with other things soon. And those are edited. So I've actually put some work into those. And most importantly, follow us on Substack. Maggie alluded to that earlier. If you like our horror discussions, we put up an exclusive audio episode of us discussing Pearl. You'll remember we did an episode on X a couple months ago, and this is the surprise prequel to X with Ty West and Mia Goth returning to this deep-fried Texas Chainsaw Massacre insanity with a gorgeous 20s, 30s sort of Wizard of Oz kind of prequel. Loved that discussion.
Yes, that was fun.
We've got other exclusive. I mentioned Barbarian.
Yep.
I wrote a little essay about that last month. Did Top Gun. the month before. We've also got bonus content for every single episode. Even if you sign up for free, you'll get every episode and some preamble, some extra notes, some extra stuff and memes and in your inbox every time an episode comes out. And if you support us for $5 a month, you get all of that and more. Including those exclusive episodes I talked about before.
Cam is also a writer and illustrator and voice actor, and he has quite a bit of work that you can find on his website. That's linked in our description. And he has a couple of Halloween themed things that you can check out.
Yes, I do.
Some of y'all have been checking out, perusing, and purchasing Cam's work. So thank you guys for that.
Totally.
We so appreciate that.
And I'm hawking a graphic novel right now to a bunch of indie publishers. And if they say no, I'm going to crowdfund it. And you bet your ass you're going to hear about that 400 times at the beginning of every episode. And
it's really good. Y'all, it's really good.
It's fun. And
however it ends up coming out, you've got to look at it.
You're going to hear about it regardless.
Yep.
And it is a dark fantasy Macbeth.
It's really
in my weird little artistic style.
It's awesome.
Yes, that'll be fun.
Cool.
All
right. Well, happy Halloween. This was fun.
Mm-hmm.
I guess today is actually, it's not All Hallows Eve. It's All Hallows, whatever the fucking next one is, because it's November 1st.
Good job.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll see y'all on Friday for a discussion episode.
Yeah, actually, that one's going to be fun.
What are we talking
Should we tell them what that's about?
I literally don't remember what it is.
I found this little short story that Mark Twain wrote in 1909. I found that a couple weeks ago. It's only 4 minutes long. It's called A Fable. And it's a fable. It's about art and interpretation of art, but it's written so indirectly and in such a fun way.
It's really cool.
I recorded it. I did a little audiobook performance of it, and I'm going to put that up on all major streaming services. I've done a few of those already. I did some Edgar Allan Poe. I did one with Tristan, and we're going to do a discussion of that short story and its implications and a full analysis of the story. It's not about my performance of it, but it's about A Fable by Mark Twain.
I was just going to break down your performance and critique you. I hope that's
that
cool.
sounds fun.
Great.
But yeah, we'll be back with that on Friday.
Yeah. All right. See y'all then.
Bye.
Bye.